Today on Cobra TV begins the first of a brand new show that we have here on the channel, where we take a closer look at the lore behind some of our most favorite and most cherished games, done a little bit documentary style. And this new show is called Game Lore. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the lore in No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky focuses on lore instead of a single-line story. Dave Gibbons of The Watchmen, Kingsman, and 2000 AD, and James Swallow of Deus Ex, Human Revolution, and Star Trek contributed to the lore of the game, as well as the Adventures in No Man's Sky comic that is part of the game's limited edition. The lore gives a consistent narrative and different perspectives from each of the life forms across the universe. It is discoveries and colonial outposts, shelters, travelers' logs, artifacts such as plaques, ruins, and monoliths found throughout the game that tell this amazing story. Since the birth of No Man's Sky's universe, there have been thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of unique entities living across the universe. And over thousands of years of advancements, wars, and evolution, 3 entities reached the peak of their own destinies before intertwining into a dark time. In our first episode of Game Lore, we are going to take a look at the Korvax. Who are they? Where did they come from? And who was behind those awesome masks? And we won't need to look to the stars to get our answers, but instead, right here on Earth, the No Man's Sky Wiki. The Korvax are one of 3 sentient species in the universe of No Man's Sky. They are a highly intellectual, mechanical species that always wants to know more about their own existence, everything in the universe, and science. While native in a distant galaxy, the Korvax had maintained several systems in the Euclid for research purposes within the Edge and Outer Edge until the Gek, the first spawn, nearly eradicated the Korvax population from the Euclid galaxy. The Korvax worship and venerate the Atlas, which makes contacting their priest a considerable boon for travelers searching for Atlas-related phenomena, ranging from Atlas technology to Atlas interfaces to even locating black holes that will bring one closer to the center of the galaxies. Korvax commonly share their memories and discoveries with one another by uploading them onto special platinum cubes that are slotted into each other's brains to copy their contents. When a Korvax is dying, they will initiate the fading process, release their intellectual form into Korvax echoes, and a new entity will immediately be generated right after the old one has faded. If the casing is damaged, the shell is often recycled and crafted by another Korvax into a brand new one. For those that are afar, for many Korvax entities, the casing will be left behind and decay. The leftover is known as a Korvax casing, which is quite valuable as a trade commodity for all the races due to their advanced bionic nature. Although the Korvax are intelligent in science and all things that are, the Korvax also have a great understanding of suffering. From slavery to nearly being slaughtered into extinction, their story is a dark but triumphant one, and is told by exploring the monoliths and plaques. Knowledge paves the way to understanding of probability. The Atlas spoken fragments. The Atlas interfaces are their shadows. The monoliths are their scattered children. Together, they convey the wisdom of the infinite. They must be understood. The Atlas interfaces drift alone in the endless void. They are silent. They are unknowable fragments of the ancient whole. Yet their imprint on time and space molds our existence. They are the equation, and life is its answer. Through their monoliths, they give understanding to their boundless meaning and that of our own. The Korvax echoes tell of a time long ago when the monoliths of the Atlas awoke. The civilizations of the Outer Edge, their presence filled them with desire for knowledge. From these beginnings, empires were born, spoke out, and fell silent once more. Before the dark times, the entities of the Korvax worshipped the Sentinels. Through them, the conversions found the formula of enlightenment. Now we calculate our own path, seeking to further enhance the mind of all that is one towards an understanding of the Atlas. The Sentinels forbid all destruction. The Sentinels forbid entity disconnection through violence. There is a way of peace and fulfillment, of logic and probability. They teach us that life's value, from the smallest to that which gives life to all others, is equal. For countless generations, the entities of the Korvax disconnected and passed on into the echoes naturally. Each disconnection added to the knowledge and soul of the convergence. Their home was Korvax Prime. Within its foundations, they stored the memories of their race, an ever-evolving equation that defined them. Disconnection, though, is not permanent. It is merely the start of a new equation. On Korvax Prime, entities who passed on into the Korvax echoes left their shell for their descendants. So has been the way of the Korvax, an endless carapace cycle that knows no end. This way will continue. It will continue for as long as their lights still shine. Those within the Korvax echoes have left the physical realm, but they endure through the masks and shells of their children. Thoughts and knowledge ever growing, they search for deeper understanding of the equation that defines their existence. The Korvax lived peacefully. They praised the Sentinels, learning from them, living beside them in equilibrium. The Korvax honored the Sentinels' ways, refusing to dig into the sacred ground they protected. They were enlightened. Through research and study, they, the Korvax, became powerful within themselves. The one-mind convergence flourished. Nurtured like a sapling in the night, it grew tall and mighty. The Sentinels brought them the gift of knowledge, and they gave thanks to the Atlas. But Korvax Prime was being watched keenly and closely by an unknown race. It lurked in the depths of the darkness, vigilant and patient, and they waited their time. The great disconnection was at hand. Korvax Prime was the home world of the Korvax race. It was a world with a vast and precious landscape of mineral ore and power, as described on a plaque constructed by the Gek. For many generations, the entities of the Korvax chose to naturally disconnect and become one of the Korvax Echoes, a collection of shared knowledge and experience known as the Convergence. This repository of memories of their race was housed on Korvax Prime in a neural networking hub. The metallic shells of these Korvax were then reused by newly created Korvax during an endless carapace recycle. The Korvax described this process as an ever-evolving equation that defined them. During a galactic war between the Viking and the Sentinels, the first spawn Gek stayed in the background, allowing the two races to battle each other into submission. Once the Sentinels had been pushed to the outer edge of the galaxy and became silent, the Gek struck. Hungry for the resources of this rich planet and its colony worlds, they attacked Korvax Prime and basically destroyed it, as well as many of the inhabitants. They shredded the planet into asteroid-sized chunks and harvested the rubble, killing huge number of Korvax entities in the process. The darkness burst forward with the force of a supernova. The great disconnection had begun. 100 million Korvax voices cried out. The Korvax echoes became a frenzy of noise. Countless cycles passed before balance was restored. The masks and shells of the Korvax survivors shook with the screams of the disconnected. Lights dimmed as the enemy descended, malevolent in its intent. Their numbers were too many. Korvax Prime was destroyed. 100 million casing lights were dimmed. The great disconnection destroyed all that went before. The Korvax echoes became screams. Years stretched like millennia amidst the disarray, yet slowly hope was reborn through logic. Korvax Prime was destroyed, its secrets spilled into the empty sky, its fragments touched the edges of the galaxy. Upon its destruction, the Gek first spawn aggressor built its dominion within the outer edge. The first spawn of the Gek disconnected the Korvax. Through obliteration, they sought dominion. They stole the planet, enslaved their survivors. Their revelry made them misguided in thought and deed. But probability dictated that their time would come again. The Korvax were enslaved, driven by the cruelty to fulfill the despot's bidding. The first spawn of the Gek were terrible masters in their spite, illogical in their cruelty. Countless entities toiled and disconnected. These tablets are the testament of those who survived. One plaque read, "Once the planet ceased to exist, millions of remaining Korvax entities were enslaved in what the Gek referred to as an act of mercy. As members of the Korvax race died on other planets, their metallic bodies were refused a return to the remaining inhabited Korvax planets for reuse. Instead, they were stripped down and melted to be used by the Gek in their war effort. And though the Korvax have regained their independence, now their original homeworld is no longer part of the galaxy. The Gek harnessed the technology of the Korvax to conquer worlds, thieves, false lords to the power of infinity. All who opposed their will perished. The balance tipped towards the darkness. These were the times of the disconnection and illogical misdeeds. The Gek destroyed worlds. The Sentinels struck back. The technology of the Korvax was used to destroy the machines they venerated. There was endless disconnection. The Convergence shook with great despair. The entities of the Korvax were forced into chains of silence, but the Korvax convergence that linked their souls could never be subdued. It endures, forever seeking new formulas to solve the equation of eternal enlightenment. The probability of success is unknown. The Korvax echoes within the unseen convergence that linked their souls never relinquished love for the Atlas. As millennia passed, this affection spread. The cult of the Atlas grew within the Gek. The equation and probabilities the Korvax hold dear entered the Gek consciousness. They had only to solve it to see the folly of their past miscalculations. The first spawn could not control the outer edge of the vast empire. The cult of the Atlas grew. It taught of harmony through insignificance. Minds that knew only war began to question. Greed and ambition yielded to reason. The Gek floundered. The first spawn became conflicted and divided. The first spawn of the Gek overreached. They stretched too far. Their folly and pride knew no bounds. Again and again they tried. Again and again they were repelled. The unstoppable force of the Sentinels could not be withstood. The unbendable cannot be broken. The cult of the Atlas drew forces within the Gek to the stations of the Atlas. The first spawn could not prevent it. Arrogant ambition yielded to newfound reason. Stone by stone, the Gek dominion crumbled. The Gek now stood in the shadow of the Atlas interface. It did not open. It did not speak. Yet the first spawn felt awe. They felt their insignificance at the center of an unending universe. It was improbable, yet within infinity all things remain possible. The Gek changed. The diminishment had begun. The unspeaking, unmoving Atlas interface inflicted an insignificance upon the Gek emissaries that showed them their role within the expanse of infinity. It forced recognition of their true place in a limitless universe. The Gek's heads bowed in shame for the miscalculations they had wrought. The cult of the Atlas took hold as the first spawn of the Gek crumbled. The diminishment was at its apex. Endless expansion turned to dust. Eons of aggression receded. The Gek saw new solutions, and the Korvax became free. The miscalculations of the past paved the way for the discovery of newfound balance. The low-spawn Gek turned on their leaders. The first spawn were cast out, ripped from their spawning pools, and cast into the dust. Their laminations curdled the air. The wisdom of the Korvax and the Atlas prevailed. The entities of the Korvax are free. Free to study the Atlas, free to praise the Sentinels, free to aid the travelers if probability will allow. Korvax and the Gek would begin anew, equal in standing, united in the eternal search for balance and understanding. The coming of the travelers such as you and I is possible, as all things are, but they watch the skies nonetheless. If they do not come here, they will exist elsewhere, and our kind, or a kind like us, will welcome them. Within the chaos of the infinite, we must cling to the probable. All things must happen. All things will occur somewhere, elsewhere, or as part of the hereafter. And now ends the testament of the Korvax.
Although the Korvax could have fought back and got their just due bloodthirsty revenge, but instead they decided to teach the Gek a different way of life. And if they would have fought back, they would have scarred the universe forever. But instead they decided to help the universe by enlightening the Gek. Join us in the next episode as we dive deeper into the Viking, the Sentinels, and very much more.